still DB services.
They're going to be looking at updates to FileMaker's OData API over the latter half of FileMaker Server 2024's lifecycle, as well as what we've seen introduced in FileMaker Server 2025. Particularly, we're going to be looking at 4 additional functionalities, being typecasting, parameterization of arguments, nested queries for specifically select filter statements, and aggregate functions. To start with, we're going to be looking at casting. And with that, introduced in the latter half of the FileMaker Server 2021 lifecycle, the OData API has the ability to typecast the data that we're returning. Say that we want a date as a number or a number as a string for an operation on whatever external service we may be leveraging the data from FileMaker for. This lets us ensure that we are getting the data type we want to work with no questions asked. And with that, I've got a couple of queries here built out to kind of show how that works. As we see here, we just have a basic OData query built out where we're looking at a specified company record and returning the start date of the business. If we go ahead and run that, we'll see that we get back our value. And if we go take a look at FileMaker, hop over to the company, we'll see that we have it right here. Now, what if we wanted that date as a number for the sake of performing some kind of timestamp or date math on our external service without needing additional calculations for conversion? We would just go ahead and add a typecasting argument to the end of our query. We'll see here that this is effectively the same exact query, but with one key difference, being after we declare the field, we are declaring an additional segment for EDM int64. EDM is OData's entity data model. This is determining what types we can work with, what types are allowed, what exists in the current OData standard. Int64 is just a 64-bit integer that will return us our date as a number. And so we see here, we run it, we return the value, and we just have this number right here. Next, I wanted to look at parameterization. Parameterization allows us to essentially, instead of having to rewrite entire queries just to handle a changing argument, we can just make sure that we pass the updated parameter. Using the example we have here, we're just doing a filter on a contacts table where we are looking for contacts that have a role and a company both containing our parameter name. Unlike with FileMaker's execute SQL statement, we do not need to redeclare the parameter a second time for the second argument that it comes up as. And as we can see here, we're just looking for the OData value. If we hop over into our FileMaker system and go look at those contacts, clicking through our contacts that we have here, we'll see we have 1 that would return, click along, 2 that would return, and that is what we would be expecting. So we'll go ahead, send that query up, and in our return value, we will have those 2 contacts here. See Midwest contact, no data contact. Now, what if we wanted to add a second parameter just to make sure that we found, say, FileMaker developer that works at OData company? We can go ahead and add an additional argument. We will go ahead call parameter 1 FileMaker and parameter 2 OData. And these arguments would just be separated with further ampersands. Go ahead, send it, and we get back 1 result as we would expect. As if we go look at FileMaker, we do only have 1 contact that has the FileMaker developer role and works for the OData LLC company. The next item I wanted to look at is nested queries. Nested queries allow us to dig deeper with our data and still target specific points on child table occurrences of our table we're starting the context from. So say we wanted to get companies that all have a location in Seattle. In this case, I have a FileMaker function I built for a query where it just lists all of the cities that a company is located in based on our locations table. So we'll see we have a couple locations in Seattle and 1 in Indianapolis. What it will do is it will just look for companies on our calculation here that I had created and return the companies that have an office in Seattle, just those company records. As we see, we have 2. Next, if we wanted to, say, dig deeper into what we were looking for, we can pull up the company and the data of each location for where the subtable of location has an address located in Seattle. We do that with our child table occurrence, and inside that child table occurrence, we wrap in our quotes here the filter statement that we want to make. So we'll go ahead and send, and this will return us our company data, as well as the related location data that matches, being the entirety of the table here. Further, if we only want specific data points from that child table, we can expand out our query a little bit more and add select statements on to select, in this case, just the first address line of each one. So currently we're still just getting back all of the business data, but if we wanted to list out just the street addresses for each location, instead of having to get all of the data, we are able to fetch just the item that we're looking for, in this case being street address. The final item that I wanted to go over is new to FileMaker Server 2025, and that is aggregation functions. These are going to allow us to manipulate the shape of our data even more, summarizing, grouping, combining field values, all in the query without having to build out FileMaker calculations or fields or any sort of additional logic outside of just where we're directly querying the data. So here I have just a baseline query where we are searching locations for what has the highest revenue by company. In this case, we start with an apply statement and we wrap our whole aggregation in a group by, where the first argument to the group by is what we are grouping with, and then we have our aggregate. From there, we are declaring what we want our aggregate labeled as, what the functionality of it is. In this case, it's going to be the maximum, and the front end name. So if we go ahead and run this, what we're expecting is the company name as well as the highest revenue for that company. In this case, we have 2 companies, Data API and OData LLC. The highest revenue for Data API, $2,000, $3,000 for OData LLC. We go hop over to FileMaker and we look in the locations table. We do see that that is correct. Now, if we wanted to just change that to the minimum, super straightforward, change it to min, and it changes OData LLC to be 1,000. Additionally, this supports other functionalities, string concatenation, averages, and additional items that we'd be able to do in FileMaker summary fields without having to actually dedicate database to those. With that, these are the 4 things that we're going to look over today. FileMaker continues to introduce even more new functionalities as they pursue OData compliance, with the newest version being 4.0.1 currently, and I am greatly looking forward to see what we get from them in the future. Thank you.